Well, alrighty, kids. This video is inspired by recent events. I recently bumped into a guy and spent some time with that ran into all kinds of issues, and it's not the first guy that I've met that has run into some could have been critical financial problems when he first came out here, primarily due to lack of preparation. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you what problems these guys encountered, and more importantly, hopefully, I'll be able to clarify how you can take some easy peasy methods and steps to prevent them from happening to you. So here comes my little video. Alrighty, so the purpose of this video is try to eliminate some easy fix snafus that can happen to you that can really turn into life-changing events. And they're simple on the surface, but when they happen, they can really change the dynamics of your vacation or your retirement. And I'm primarily talking about money. So let me kind of walk you through this scenario. I had a friend come out, a subscriber. And by the way, there's been a lot of people subscribing lately, so thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it, and welcome to the Old Dog family. Okay, that being said, this guy came out, sweetest guy you would ever want to meet. Came out for 30 days, brought some money with him, but didn't want to bring a lot of cash because he's a little nervous about, getting robbed and all that, which is a valid concern, and was just gonna move his money over or go to an ATM or use his credit card. So I'm going to address all three of those because you might be thinking the same way. I know I did before I got on the plane. And was I wrong and were they wrong? So here's the dealio. I'm going to say what I've seen 5 or 6 times happen to guys over the years. Not a lot, but enough that it's just caused chaos for them. And that was when they went to move their money over. I'm going to say Zoom. You have a Zoom app or Transfer or Wise or Remitly, but for this conversation, we're going to stick with my place, Zoom. You slide the bar over, you're going to move over $1,000. And the first thing that's going to pop up is they're going to ask you, what is this transaction for? I always put goods and services. But since it's your first time, or my first time, when I did it my first time, and now my friend's first time, they're going to ask you security questions. And I'm glad that those precautions are set up in place because I want my stuff protected. I'm glad they're there. So make sure you know what the hell you answered when they ask you, your girlfriend's in high school or your dad's middle name or your first car, because sometimes those questions can change. So just maybe make a mental note or a written note on that Zoom app that these are your security question answers, and so that you can answer those properly. Now here's where the bugaboo comes in. I was extremely lucky when I did this, and it was purely by mistake. I had no idea how lucky I was. When I moved over, prior to me moving over here to the Philippines, I went to T-Mobile, or I called them on the phone or texted them, whatever it is. I contacted them, we'll put it that way. And I said, hey, listen, I'm leaving the States. I'm going to be going for a period of time to the Philippines. How do I call home? What's the charges like? And they said, well, Paul, you can just upgrade to what's called an international plan. It'll work the same. You'll keep the same phone number. You can use it 24/7. And we've got enough towers and all that and networking that you can make and receive phone calls 24/7. And I said, okay, how much is that? I think my plan went from $50 to $65. I said, cool. And the only reason I wanted that ability was to stay in touch with family and friends until I got settled in over here. And I figured I'd run it for about a month or two, and then I would just switch over to a local plan, which is about 10 or 12 bucks. and that's really the game plan today since then. However, what I didn't realize was that number was critical and crucial to me completing my Zoom transaction, because after they asked the little security questions, the phone rang, and it was, I don't know who, from Zoom, and he wanted to verify that I was me. And he asked me the exact same questions that the little questionnaire asked, and a couple of other things. And how much was I moving? And what state was I from? And where am I now? And, I appreciate the security measures put up because it's protecting me. But the point and so anyway, the transaction went through. Bing, I got my little number from Zoom, and I was able to utilize that and go get my money. What's the point, you say? The point is, if I did not have a valid phone number for Zoom to get a hold of me, I was screwed. And that is exactly what happened to my friend this month. He just went home a few days ago. And what has happened to 4 or 5 other guys. They never did anything about a phone number. A lot of folks are going to comment, and they're not going to be wrong when they say you can use, I use Magic Jack. It's like $2 or $3 a month. Now I use it. There's Viber, there's Skype, there's Google, there's all these other plans, but a lot of those are internet-based. The problem with that is, especially the first month you're here, you may not always have the internet. It may not always be functioning. And number 2, some companies, not all, but some, just won't accept a phone call from an internet type of phone number. They want what's it called, a landline number, proper cell number. And different entities vary. So there's certain companies that I can call, like I can call my bank with Magic Jack, no problem. I can't call Social Security with it. So there you have it. I got lucky. My friend never contacted his provider and told them that he needed an international plan for the 30 days that he was going to be here. And then, to top that off, he said, well, okay, I'll just go to the ATM and pull out some money. And that didn't work. I know you already know why. He didn't call his bank or his credit cards and let them know that he was leaving the country. I know 95, 98% of you watching this are saying, well, everybody knows that. Well, no, they don't, because I just met one, and I've met 4 or 5 prior. And so here's the gist of it, kids. Before you come out here, do yourself a solid. Make sure when you talk to whatever company you're going to use to transfer your money, if indeed that's the way that you're going to do it, that you guys have a firm understanding as to how the first transaction is going to go. Ask questions. Are they going to call you? Are they going to ask you security questions? Can you use this type of phone number? I think the simplest thing to do is what I did by accident. I just kept my number and paid an extra $15. When they called, I answered. We did our thing. They emailed me the number. Everything was cool. But had I not have done that, I would have been in a pickle. So that's that. Number 2, banks, your bank and your credit cards do need to be contacted, and you need to tell them I'm leaving the country and I'm going to Southeast Asia. They might ask you how long you're going to be there. I told them indefinitely, and they said, okay. And that was that. So I think that covers that. But on the subject of credit cards, this is another misnomer that I felt. I thought that you could just, if you checked into a hotel or if you went to 7-Eleven, you could just flip down your credit card like you do in the States and pay for it. How the hell did I know? I'd never been here before. No can do. There was a gentleman at Ground Zero Coffee Shop, ordered his breakfast, ordered his coffee, did the whole enchilada, gave him a credit card, and they said, we don't take credit cards. It's a fairly big, modern-looking coffee shop. They just don't take them. I'm not saying everybody denies them. If you go to a big department store, if you go to a great big supermarket, they will, but 7-Eleven won't. So coffee shops won't. They'll take Gcash and all this other local stuff that's over here. So again, a word to the wise is that I guess I'll sum it up by saying cash is king. So let's talk about cash again. And this is another little friendly reminder for you guys. When you come over here, please bring cash with you, preferably $100 bills. If you're all set up with your debit card, if you're all set up and confident with your ability to transfer money over, you don't need to bring a ton, but I would say $1,000 minimum. And when you do it, go to your bank prior and get all brand new $100 bills. Yes, you can change a 50 and a 20, but the exchange rate goes down, and some places will accept them, some won't, some will only take hundreds, yada, yada, yada. If there's any flaws, any problems with the bill, they won't take them here. Believe me, I've had 3 that BDO wouldn't take one time. It's a bank out here. And then I wiggled over to another exchange place and they did take them. But you know what I'm saying. There could have been $300 that I would never have seen in pesos had they been really flawed. That's just that. When you first land in Cebu or Manila, I'm assuming you're coming to the Philippines, even though you might be going somewhere else, exchange $100 or $200 at the airport right away. The exchange rate is not going to be as good as it is when you hit town. I'll leave it up to your discretion. But after my other little speech about hotels and whatnot, maybe not taking credit cards, make sure that you have enough money in your pocket so that when you leave, you hop into the cab and you go to your hotel. Maybe you didn't book it prior and use a credit card to do so. Maybe you're doing it like me where I didn't have a booking. I just told the cab, yeah, take me to a hotel. I did that in Cebu and I did it in Dumaguete. Neither hotel that I checked into accepted credit cards because I asked them. But I had some cash from the airport, so I was able to pay them. Same thing when I took the bus. And then when I got over here, I did my little test balloon on Zoom. And I moved, even though I had cash in my pocket, plenty. I had enough to last for a couple, 3 months. I wanted to test it, and I tested it. And I'm glad I did because they made that friggin' phone call. All right, so I'm not going to belabor this a lot. What I think the best method to do over here is to have your smartphone, your expensive Apple or your Samsung or whatever you're using, and have that set up. Once you're over here and you've made a couple of transfers, if you want to go ahead and cancel your T-Mobile or your Verizon, rock on and feel free. If your phone has a dual SIM card, maybe you'll want to keep it, maybe you won't, but you can get a local number 2. What I ended up doing and what I do now is I have 2 phones. So I have the phone that is the nice, expensive Samsung thing that I use to film this on and do my banking and pay my bills and my credit cards and all that wazoo stuff. And then there's another simple one for simply phone calls and text. I haven't used it for a long time, but it does give you an opportunity to leave the nice phone at home and you'll just have a cheap little $50 phone that you buy at the mall with a local SIM card in it. So if you want to text locally and get on Facebook, you can. And that way your expensive phone is tucked away safely at home. You also don't want to lose your phone out here. It's as bad, if not worse, than losing your wallet. All right, so what did we cover in here? We covered bringing over brand new bills, exchanging some of those. When you when you transfer money, make sure that you can receive a phone call from whatever entity. If you're going to use an ATM, make sure your bank knows that you're here in the Philippines, and when you go to the ATM, you won't have issues. You can pull out cash that way. I just don't think there's anything worse than being over here and having to go through the brain damage. The gentleman that I was just speaking about that was here, his quick fix solution to his problem was he was fortunate to have a brother that he was able to get a hold of. I think he borrowed somebody else's phone to make the call. And his brother Western Unioned him a couple $1,000s or whatever it was. He had some people helping him and took him down to Western Union because he was really kind of lost a little bit, all new to all this, elderly like me, which is easy for us to get befuddled and confused, like this video. And he was able to get some cash, and it ended up to be a happy ending. Another dude that 2 or 3 years ago, this exact thing happened. He didn't have very many friends, and he didn't have any family that he could rely on. And he told me later on, he said it took him 4 or 5 days emailing and contacting these various entities. And he said it was the hardest, longest, stressful thing he ever did. Eventually, it got him straightened out. And he's a full-timer. So, all things being equal, losing 4 or 5 days is not fun, and especially not having any money. I think he was borrowing money from guys that trusted him and then paying them back, but he got it sorted out. But hell, if you're here on a vacation and you're going to be here for 3 weeks and you spend 4 or 5 days trying to straighten it out, that's just not much of a vacation. So I just wanted to pop this out real quick, real easy this evening while it was on my head, and I hope you find it useful. And I think that's all I've got to say about that. So I will see you in the next video.